St. Lucia. This is Openmike, and we are now back to the final segment of our program. And I have to say, I've been extremely impressed and learned a lot by what Mr. Ragnanan has just indicated. And he has some further information which will even bring a lot more knowledge to us. And that is, he has dealt with the airports, and now he's going to deal with the seaports.
Thank you again, Mr. Shasne. The seaports create unique challenges for us. Whereas we have 2 airports, we have up to 9 seaports.
And don't forget all the people that come in illegally.
That is another kettle of fish altogether.
That's right.
So the seaports create more challenges, and they are more open. It's difficult for you to be able to manage all the vessels that come in, given the times that they come into at all hours of the day and night.
And without, if I cut you short, when you figure a vessel can bring us more than 40, 50 containers, as you rightly said earlier, the problem which you had, can you imagine what you all have to go through?
But dealing specifically now with infectious disease management of our seaports. Unlike an aircraft where you may have a flight 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, depending where it's originating from, and thankfully we do not have any direct flights from West Africa to St. Lucia.
Correct.
It means that if somebody is actively sick, there is no aircraft that is going to board you. You're not going to be allowed to come on board. But the ships create a different dynamic, especially with our cruise ships, where you may have people there between 7 days cruise, maybe 14 days.
That's right.
And there are even ships that come to St. Lucia where people are there for 6 months. They're doing a world tour.
That's right.
And you have 6 months.
And you have 3,000 when they come in at a time.
4,000 people, passenger and crew.
Plus the crew.
Yes. What we have done is we've worked very closely with the agents for the ships. And again, it is an international requirement that every ship submit a maritime declaration of health. It means that anybody on that ship who visits a doctor on that ship, and when I say, I want to qualify it, primarily our cruise ships, they have the medical facility on board.
Correct.
The other ships, they do not have this facility. The cargo ships.
Cargo ships,
And we've had an experience, you know, in St. Lucia just a few months ago, where we had to quarantine a ship.
I remember that, one in Beaufort.
Quarantine a ship.
The one with the grain or something.
Yes. Where persons came in, one person had died, the other person was sick. And we could not permit that ship to berth and to offload the consignment that it had on board. We had to continue it at sea and to manage everything that was there at sea. You see, the thing about the ship is, it is built in such a way where you can actually keep the persons on board and be able to administer whatever treatment, whatever surveillance that you need to do on board.
Correct.
So they don't necessarily have to come off. And that is important for us, because even with cruise ships, and many times it has happened, where we go on board and there are certain illnesses, Norwalk virus especially, and persons who are suffering with this virus would be kept in their rooms. Because you see, the ship also is very careful, because when you're on a ship, you're living in a community with 3,000–4,000 people. And it's a very closed community. And therefore, it's easy to transmit diseases.
Very easy.
Because you're using common elevators, common walkways, common seating areas, and that thing. So the ship also has a key role in decontamination, in putting measures in place. Before you get 1 or 2 cases of a disease on a ship, they change the way they operate altogether. People no longer serve themselves. They would have they would have a team serving people, so you don't contaminate equipment and that kind of thing. So they have to protect their interests also. And therefore, what we get is a 24-hour notification of an illness that is on the ship. So that would be emailed.
Now, without cutting you short, how often has that happened?
What's that?
When you will be notified, and let's say in the last...
Every single ship that comes there sends it to us.
I know, but how, have you had any incidents to worry about?
Yeah, we've had situation. Last year we had a big ship that came to St. Lucia, and there was an outbreak of Norwalk. And we had to go on board and to make an assessment and to determine whether persons were coming off and who it was that was coming off.
Okay.
As part of that, there is a lot of education that must go on. Tourism is really the lifeblood of St. Lucia.
That's right.
And therefore, you have to be very careful what measures you take in dealing with the tourism industry. Even now, St. Lucia has to be very careful that you not put a ban on travel for
That's
Ebola,
right,
for example,
correct.
because, again, the disease is dynamic.
Yeah.
Somebody may very well come out of West Africa and go to the United States,
That's right.
visit a family, get sick there. Would you say that you're not accepting Americans to St.
Correct.
Lucia because there are 1 or 2 cases over in America? You see, the thing about it is your best system is to have a system in place to ensure that you can manage the cases that you have.
Correct.
And therefore, that is what we are working on. That is, I mean, St. Lucia do not have a case of Ebola, but if you understand the number of meetings and protocols and everything else that we are putting in place, it's all to ensuring that if we were to have a case, that we would have systems to be able to respond
Correct.
and to manage the best that we can, given the resources that we have.
Correct.
So I was saying to you that we've had to go on vessels. We've had times where we have met with the taxi drivers and to tell them that if they observe any of the passengers they may have picked up from a cruise ship, the tour operators, that this is what they need to do. This is how they need to disinfect their vehicles and so forth. And it's important because sometimes somebody can come in and be perfectly healthy, but whilst they are in your care,
correct, yeah.
they may begin to manifest.
Yeah, because there may be the incubation period.
Yes, that is correct. So we've had situations where we have had to quarantine people all the time in the rooms. It's easy to quarantine on board a ship because passengers, they are given a card to swipe. And what you do is you work with security on the ships where they would disable that card so they cannot use it to get out of the vessel. So in the case of an infectious disease, the ship has its own protocol too. And they, especially the cruise ships, they would ensure that if somebody is actively ill, that they remain in their room also and receive room service. Because again, you do not want them to be out in the open where they can contaminate others.
From your experience, you have 26 years experience. The cruise ships would be, to me, one of the most vulnerable areas because of the number of people and the closeness of the whole environment. Am I correct?
That is correct. And if you, just this year, we had a number of ships where there were large outbreaks and they had to end their voyages.
Cruise,
one came out of Jamaica, for example, with a large, over 700 cases of Norwalk virus. It had to return to port and people had to disembark and they had to do a complete disinfection
I remember
of that vessel. And there were 2 or 3 others, similar situations that happened. So the systems at the ports is that when a ship comes into St. Lucia, they would ask for pratic. Now, pratic is for permission for people and goods to disembark and to embark on a vessel. And the Ministry of Health is the authority who grants pratic. So we have officers who would go on that vessel and would review the Maritime Declaration of Health to determine whether there are any sick person on board. If at this point we realize that there are people of interest, we would then call in for a medical person to come on board to go through the medical logs. Sometimes you have to do investigation to find out whether the source of the problem is through poor water quality, or maybe a food safety issue, so you may have to do inspections. Every ship that comes there must carry a document, and it's an international document. It's called a Ship Sanitation Control Certificate or Ship Sanitation Exemption Certificate. In the old days, it used to be called the Rattin Certificate.
Yes, I remember that.
But with the international health regulation, we've gone beyond just rodents on a ship. We're looking at the whole health status.
Correct.
So that would include your water quality, your food safety, your storage, vectors, issues of protocols that you have on board the ship, because protocols are very important, training of staff. So your ship sanitation now speaks of sanitation in general and not just for rodents. And they must present that document.
But you know, listening to you, my mind is ticking over. And I'm thinking of all the cargo we have coming into St. Lucia. That must be a very difficult task for you. I mean, or not only difficult, but worrisome. Because, you know, I mean, we were running a supermarket, and I can tell you, we have 14,000 items on our shelf. So, I mean, you know, just to put any form of examination would be somewhat difficult. What's your take on that?
It is, but what we do is we rely on partners also. We cannot do it alone. We get information, for example, invoices coming out of the US market where there'd be certification of these products. What we've done, and we intend to do further, is to do more risk assessment. So they are high-risk products. There are food products that are of lower risk.
Yes.
There are others that are high risk. So we are going to inspect on a risk assessment basis. Presently, we have the Ministry of Agriculture, the Veterinary Division, who examines 100% of meats and poultry that come into St. Lucia.
Okay.
That is being done. But whenever they suspect that there may be not just an animal health risk associated, but a food safety risk, the Ministry of Health would come in, because the Ministry of Health is the food safety authority, and therefore to give condemnations and to condemn food items for human health purposes, for wholesomeness purposes.
You know, as you say that,
the ministry would have to do that.
I saw in some investigation which I carried out in the Philippines, if I may be permitted to read it to you, it says that in the Philippines, I think I made a note of it somewhere, whereby, humans can be infected by other humans if they come in contact with body fluids from an infected person or contaminated from infected. Humans can also be exposed to the virus, for example, by butchering infected animals.
Yes.
Now, you know, as you rightly said, you know, we get a lot of imported meats and different things, and of course, there's a limit to what you can do. But as you rightly said, you have to rely on the certification from abroad.
That is correct.
To do those things. Yeah.
And I don't know that St. Lucia, maybe there are a small amount of exotic meats that have been imported by private persons.
Yes.
I'm not aware that it's been done en masse in St. Lucia. But clearly the outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo was from somebody who went hunting and hunted for a monkey, got the meat home, his wife prepared it, and a number of persons out. That's how it started recently. So clearly we've said already that the monkeys are also able to transmit the disease to human beings. The direct contact, that is how you can get Ebola, and that is why at the ports of entry we are appealing especially to border control people to take precautionary measures. Don't hug persons and shake hands.
Yes.
You know, these are basic measures that you can take. Also, a certain amount of personal protection is important, and we have to be careful, I must say. Wearing gloves is important, but again, how you wear it, how you manage the wearing of gloves, all of that is important. So there is a lot that can be done, but we must take the precautionary measures at this point in time at the points of entry to protect ourselves, to protect our families, and to protect the nation.
Mr. Ragnanan, you have given me a volume of information here, and I'm certain that many St. Lucians will be far more educated and aware of the Herculean task that you have before you, and how we should be more careful with what is going on until such time that this Ebola disease is brought. St. Lucia, this is the end of our 4th segment. I want to thank you greatly for listening, and I'm sure that many of you who've listened would be very pleased with what you've learned, and I can assure you that if there are any further information coming in regard to the Ebola disease, I'll be very happy to bring Mr. Ragnanan and Dr. George back again at a further date if it becomes necessary. So, this is Openmike saying goodbye to you until next Sunday at the same time. Mr. Ragnanan, I want to thank you greatly for being here today.